Hi everybody, I'm David Hanna from Cornerstone and welcome to today's video, which is property investment in the UK, how to do it. Let me first say that there are many ways to invest in property in the UK and indeed many different types of property. The most obvious way to invest in property in the UK is directly, i.e. to buy a property, but that's probably the most complicated. So let me first just highlight a couple of simpler ways that you can invest in UK property. The first of which is to invest in funds. These are generally unit trusts, real estate investment trusts, and some types of bond issues. These investments are passive. They require you to know nothing about the property and have no role in the care and management of it. But whilst they are generally safer because they're run by professional investment managers, they also have lower yields. The second way to invest in UK property indirectly is actually to invest in the UK property services infrastructure. These would include estate agents, mortgage brokers, bridging finance companies, banks, even possibly investing in legal services such as conveyancing. And again, these investments, because they are stock market style investments, are intrinsically more risky and may well offer a higher return, but they are very much market activity dependent. The third route, of course, is direct, buy a property. And this is probably the most complicated, both for operational and legal reasons. I mean, first and foremost, you have to decide what kind of property you're going to buy. Buy to let, residential property in other words, has been very, very popular over the last decade or two. But remember that you've got subsets of this. You have ordinary buy to let houses, houses in multiple occupation, sometimes called HMOs, student accommodation, and you've then got the gamut of commercial and industrial properties such as shops, offices, warehouses and factories. And each sector has its own peculiarities. For example, you might be thinking of investing your pension scheme in property. Well, you won't be allowed to invest in residential property, so your scope is narrowed to non-residential investments. You might choose to invest in a mixed portfolio, and you might choose to invest in your own name, jointly with your spouse or life partner, or with friends and colleagues from work, or indeed through a limited company. And each of those choices has both organisational and tax advantages and disadvantages. But one of the features of direct investment that is least appreciated by the beginning investor, and I speak as the husband of an active buy-to-let investor, is what I call the organisational, regulatory and managerial issues surrounding buy-to-let investment. Many types of residential property in many areas these days are regulated. HMOs are, and some boroughs around the country operate a voluntary house registration scheme which signs you up to maintain minimum standards in your property, and if you fail to do so you can be liable to criminal penalties. If you're new to buy-to-let investing, your role is not just to go out and find a property, and more about that in a minute, but also to find the tenant, collect the rent, be responsible for repairs, and be legally responsible for ensuring the property is in a habitable and safe condition. For example, even in 2018, they moved a new act specifically aimed at buy-to-let properties called the Human Habitation Act. And it gives a long list of things that you cannot have wrong with a property and be able to lawfully let it. And it's important that you comply with all of these, because if you want quality tenants, which will guarantee you the best income, then you've got to be able to offer quality property. For example, you might be thinking that simply buying a turnkey two-bedroom property is sufficient. But if your target tenant is, so we say, a young couple, professional, upwardly mobile, they'll almost certainly want Sky TV capability, internet capability, networks in the house, particularly in the era of working from home. And if you offer all these as an added value, then you're likely to attract a better tenant. Ultimately, you have to balance your experience or inexperience against the likely returns on your investment. Quite often, buying an older property, one that's in need of substantial refurbishment, can reap better long-term rewards because you get the benefit of larger capital uplift from the improvements you make putting your tenants in. Oh, And by the way, always ban pets. Dogs and cats can be the worst destroyers of a buy-to-let property than the worst possible tenant. Trust me, I know. So overall, one of the ways you can reduce the risks of entering into buy-to-let is possibly to partner up with somebody who's more experienced than you are. It could be a friend, it could be a colleague. They could serve as mentor or even as partner, helping you to work your way through these stages. But the most important thing is to do your research. Read your books, watch the videos, attend some courses, learn what your responsibilities are before you commit yourself to a multi-100,000 pound investment, and then realise that you don't have the time or the inclination to deal with it. Overall, therefore, and I think on balance, if you buy well and select your tenants well, being a buy-to-let landlord can be a rewarding experience. But when I say rewarding, I don't just mean financially, also emotionally. If you get good long-term tenants, you form a bond with them and you tend to work with them rather than against them. And that is part of the social fabric of this country. We shouldn't be thinking that we are simply investing money to get money back. What we're investing in is providing people who need homes with homes. A lot of our payback will be financial, that is true. But there's an emotional payback of giving something to somebody who needs it at a time when in this country, we need each other more than most. Thank you for listening. If you like this video and you'd like to hear more from Cornerstone, please click the like and subscribe buttons on the links below, and you'll be notified about future videos in this series. And as you've probably noticed if you've watched some of the other ones that we have already posted, although we're about stamp duty, we're not all about tax.